This is the City of Waupaca City Plan Commission meeting.
Why don't we go ahead and get started? It looks like it's the witching hour. I'd like to welcome everyone to this edition of our monthly Plan Commission. Everyone is in attendance except Angela Lesage. And Mayor Smith, who normally chairs the meeting, is joining us remotely at some lonely airport lobby somewhere. So thank you for joining us, Brian. I think it'd be appropriate for everybody to meet our new Plan Commission member. Does everybody knows Dana Gutsky, probably? Ivan, do you know Dana? Ivan Wayne.
Nice to meet you, Ivan.
Just to let you guys know, you are neighbors, I think. Pretty close.
Yeah.
In the same neighborhood.
I live on Timber Drive.
Okay, Honey Bear. Name.
Yeah, we're not far apart then.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, welcome, Dana, to the commission. All right. So I think our first action is to approve the agenda. Does anybody want to do that?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay. We got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 2, I think we could probably take these together. They are the public hearing minutes and the meeting minutes of our February 1 meeting. Does anybody want to take those?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Ivan made a motion to
Second.
approve. Second by Eric. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, to number 3, action items. Our first one, A, site plan review, Waupaca Foundry, Inc., owner, Strongwood, Inc., applicant, 609 and 617 Tower Road. Maybe Jared, you want to set this up, and then it looks like we've got some reps maybe for the project here.
Yeah, so I'll first off, Mike Bloom is in the, he moved,
Okay.
second row.
Hey, Mike.
So he's the representative here for this project. So if there are any more specific questions, I will direct them to him after I introduce this. So this project has had a couple preluding steps. So if the commission remembers, a certified survey map had come forward and a rezone had come forward for this parcel, preparing for this development. We are now at the fun part where we get to see the development. This parcel is 609 and 617 Tower Road. The primary address is 609 if you look it up in the GIS system. They are proposing a 2-building apartment complex. Both buildings, I believe, have 24 units total in them. 48 each. My apologies. Thank you for clarifying. 48 each in them. There'll be 2 structures. They will be situated, I guess, near middle of the parcel. There's a site plan. If you go to page 25 of your packets, you can see the general layout of the parcel, where the 2 buildings are going to be located. There will be no parking garages. It'll be all outdoor parking, parking stalls. Yeah, driveway off of Tower. I will mention that a traffic study is required per the city and county and state DOT for this development to see how it impacts the intersection of Tower and Royalton. The developer has been notified of that and is in process of completing that. So once we get that report back, we will determine a course of action if a course of action is needed. I guess that's really the gist of it. I am happy to take any questions or direct any more specific questions to Mike Bloom in the audience.
I got a question. Does this property, and I don't know what necessarily, if we're just discussing the entire project right now or just specific?
So this is the entire project. This will be the site plan, entire site plan for both buildings, parking lot, all associated elements of the site plan.
So the plan is no additional entrance point, right? It would still be the main entry into
Nope, so there'll be
Foundry.
an additional entry point off of Tower Road as far to the north as possible from the intersection.
They're just not sure exactly where that would be yet.
So they have approval for that from the county. It is going to be approximately 30 feet from the north property line.
Is it kind of right across from those apartments?
It's going to be pretty close to those other apartments, that driveway.
Okay, and then I was just wondering, is that property, because looking at one of the pictures, it showed it was kind of over onto there was like the farm implements, the owner next door. Does it include any of that property there? Is that all Foundry property, or are they buying some of that property next door?
Nope. The entire parcel that they're going to be building on is owned by the Foundry. They did not have to take any from the implements to the east. I believe they did go a little bit north, which one of the requirements of this, their new property line does go over an existing fence that is still on Foundry property. So as part of this development, that will need to be off of these apartment complex property. Mm-hmm. But they are not extending any further into the implements or taking any property from them.
So maybe on that picture, maybe the implements were just over a little bit on the Foundry property, maybe because I don't know which picture it was, but you can definitely see the outline of that.
In one of the aerials?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in the aerials, that's just taken off of GIS. And so there is some skew just when you're putting the property lines on a image that was taken in an aircraft.
Gotcha.
There's just skew with that. So
Yep.
that's probably what you saw.
Jared, we have Strand Associates review our major projects, and they commented, I'm assuming the developers seen those comments and are fine with
Yep.
them.
So packets were sent to both applicants in this meeting. I did not get a chance to touch base with Mike if he had seen them beforehand.
Because I think one of the comments was to have a second entrance, I believe, on this in Strand's marks. But physically, I don't know how you do that.
I think they meant a second ingress and egress point. So I think they're making the suggestion to make a connection to the north, since it is
Okay.
Foundry butting up to Foundry. So that was more of a emergency services access, not a second driveway access point, but a second emergency access point.
I can agree with that. I do not remember that specific point in their comments. I'd have to find what exactly it read, but that would sound accurate.
You'd have to go to page 17 or 18. It's
Yeah, 17 is the start of the report.
And that would probably be something our fire department would want for, that second ingress and egress, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be a major improved entrance, right? It just needs to be
right.
An access point.
Right.
Got him. Thanks. I don't know which numbered comment it was.
It appears as number 4, and it's
Yeah, it's on page 18, I think.
Yeah.
it just says an opportunity to provide a second access to the parcel to the north exists. Yeah.
Well, it might be unfair, Mike, to have you respond if you haven't had a real chance to look at those comments. Have you had a chance? Okay.
I've not. But I would guess that the Foundry would be open to us having access from that side of it, seeing as it's working for the Foundry employees.
For the record, you should probably come up and, state your name and who you represent. Thank you.
Yep. Mike Bloom, Strongwood Builders.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I thought, when I read it, it seemed like pretty bread and butter kind of comments that didn't seem too onerous or unattainable, I don't know, so at this level, Jared, we approve the site plan, right? So we don't make a recommendation to council. This is the final action.
Correct.
Then developer can move forward, pull permits, and get going. I'm assuming you want to probably start yesterday kind of thing.
Yeah, well, the foundry,
You need to go to the mic again.
Yeah, sorry.
we all know the foundry's owned by a investment group, and those guys aren't always as quick as we want them to be. But yeah, there's some things that need to get in the queue at some of our factories, some of the paneling and that yeah, would certainly be better if it got started yesterday. Yep, no doubt. The quicker they go up, the quicker they've got access to it for housing workers.
So do you think it'll be done by the end of the year?
2023? No, it's the panelization for something like this is, I believe my guy said he needs an 8-week window, and then we'd have to bring it all in. Site work and all that would take 6 to 8 weeks from start to finish. So we were actually finalizing one of the buildings, could be this year if this all gets approved and we get on the queue. Total project would be about 18 months from start to finish for the whole project.
I don't know, seems like a great project. There's some, for the folks living there, they've got a couple, they got a restaurant within walking distance, the gas station, and so there's some support there. Certainly the zoning and the land use all fits good on that site.
And each unit is identical?
Sure.
It looked like each unit was 2-bedroom?
No, in this particular case, they're all studio apartments.
It's 1-bedroom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of temporary workers that now are housed more at the hotels, which aren't walking distance to the foundry. So their idea is to hopefully get some of these people to be permanent residents and find other housing within Waupaca.
Yep.
And this will be exclusively foundry employees?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Henry. Mike, how are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for coming. I know one conversation we had in our development review team was we look at this site map on page 25. I know you have more than sufficient parking. Was there ever a conversation about maybe preserving or maybe not having as much maybe in the middle of those buildings for a green space for the tenants? Or has that conversation not do you think that'd be possible? It was just something that came up.
We're trying to find out if a lot of these temps have vehicles or not, and what percentage maybe they have, and then bump that space up. So if, rather than every apartment having a parking spot, if they said, well, more than likely 25% of these guys have vehicles, then we could maybe cut that in half and add some green space. Mm-hmm. But we did talk about places for benches and picnic tables.
Okay.
Not sure how much space is to the north between where our driveway is and the foundry, but I can't read the dimension. But yeah, anywhere that grass would be available to put something down, we want to give them something to get outside and enjoy it.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Are we at a point to approve? I don't think we're going to disapprove. So is there a motion to
And
approve the
I
site
don't know,
plan?
I may have to abstain on this, being an employee of the foundry. It's probably
Understood.
a conflict of interest there.
So the mayor can vote. We have a quorum, so we
Yes.
can talk business. So we're in good shape with a recusal. All right. Is anyone comfortable making a motion, one way or the other?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, we've got a motion
Second.
to approve the site plan with a second by Justin. I'm assuming in accordance with the comments of our reviewing engineer as well as the review by our city staff as it's been presented. And no changes to any of the conditions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, we can take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 ayes and 1 abstention, no noes. So the motion carries. Congratulations, Mike. Thank you for
Thank you.
being here.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
It's actually 5 ayes. for
Was
the
it
record.
5?
It's 5 ayes, yeah.
I don't vote.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Sorry about that.
For the record. 5
For the
ayes,
record,
1
5
abstain.
ayes, 1 abstention, no noes. Okay. So we're now going to move to the second item under action items, which is a project on Division Street. You want to set this one up as well, Jared? And it looks like we have some representatives as well for that project.
Yes, we have 3 representatives in the audience as well for this project. So if you have any site-specific questions for them, I will direct those to them. And Aaron, I don't know if you have the capability. I did send out an email with an updated color and elevation drawing.
Yeah, I can pull it up. Just give me a
Perfect.
second.
Not a problem. I'll kind of present while you're doing that. So this request is for a multifamily residential complex at 223 Division Street here in Waupaca. So many of us do know this property as the St. Mary's Magdalene Church, the old one. This church has been sitting vacant for quite some time. From my understanding, there were multiple different requests for proposals sent out for this property to try to renovate it and make it into something useful for the community. There just wasn't the community resources or outside interest for that. So it continued to sit vacant. This proposal did come forward recently. We've been trying to work with the developer on this project. This is I'm getting my numbers mixed up here. I believe a 30-unit apartment complex. Perfect. All market rate. The building will be located, I guess, differently than the church is now. So the building will be located closer to Badger Street, and it'll take up the entire from Division to State along Badger Street. The parking lot will be located in the rear of the property now, so to kind of shield the parking area. They have proposed some light landscaping on the front to kind of spruce up the front of the building along East Badger. It will be 2-story. We'll have a modern feel. Aaron is actually pulling up the visual that they have finalized right now. Of a modern black and white with stone, grays in there, and then mixed in with the light vegetation that they plan on doing. That is the gist of it. Happy to take any questions or direct questions to the representatives.
Are there different sizes of apartments? 1, 2, 3 bedroom?
I'll have one of you guys go up to the mic and.
Yeah, just please state your name and who you're
Edward Fisher, Green Bay. Do you need an address also?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thanks. They are similar, ranging from about 1,000 square feet down to about 750. The end units on both levels are 2 bedrooms, and the interiors have an interior room that is meets the requirements of a sleeping room under the state code. We could call it a 1-bedroom with a flex office, or it can be used for a multitude of things.
So our action, just like the one we just took, we're reviewing the site plan, and we would approve that with any conditions or whatever. But I understand there is a development agreement involved in this project that will catch up with the council maybe at our March meeting.
I'll let
Yeah,
Aaron
I
speak
would
to that.
say at this point it would be the last meeting in March at the earliest. Probably right now looking more like April, but I think that might be a question for you guys at when we would expect. I know obviously we've have some information that you guys are looking over. April, is that when you would expect council to review a development agreement, potential development agreement?
Would you
Yeah, you big.
introduce yourself?
You're not going to get away from this meeting without stating your name and where you're from.
Tim Schulke.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have demolition crews ready to go in April. We would like to start in April, so I would shoot for late March to have that developers agreement.
Okay. So then if you could just get me the comments
Right.
after your review, if we're going to shoot for that, like anytime in the next, by the end of this week, if possible, that'd be awesome.
Sure.
And so I think as you guys introduced this, I think we were anticipating it because it was addressed in some staff reports. So this is a market rate, and you're looking at a whole range of tenants, ages and things of that, right? Just for the record. So young professionals, gray hairs, retirees, that kind of thing, right? Okay.
Correct.
All right.
So I got a question. I don't know. It looks like nobody's been in there for a long, long time. Is there anything left in there that is going to try and be salvaged? I mean, the stained glass windows and all that. Is anybody going to take that stuff?
So a company that's going to remove the church, it's called Recycling, and they're going to repurpose pretty much 90% of the material. It's going to be reused and donated.
Great, because I would hate to see that
Right.
stuff just get all
There's not much
dumped.
left in the church. There are some lights, maybe a pew down in the basement, but not much is in there.
Okay, besides rats and cats and
There's a couple in there.
Eric, Jared did also go through the church with some members of the new St. Mary's Church and some leadership there, as well as Tracy from the Historical Society. They kind of went through, took inventory of what they thought may be useful for the church and for this Historical Society, and documented some things via pictures and videos. So that has been done.
that's good to hear. I'm glad that they're doing that.
Yeah, I really commend your company for doing that. I think that you'll get a lot of goodwill. You know, we don't have a, we have a historic preservation commission. You know, they're not going to have any input on the development itself formally. But I think the fact that you're sensitive to that, I think is really good. So you need to get going, and you need to complete this project by the end of the year, right?
That's
In terms of the impact of the development agreement.
Right.
I guess I'm kind of getting off on the wrong, maybe a tangent here. So you would anticipate being done by the end of the year?
That's what our contractor has set his deadline on, and he's confident as of right now. Things could change, but right now, yes.
Okay, great. Again, you have seen our consulting engineer's review of the project and the comments.
Not all of them.
All right.
We did review some.
Okay, so you didn't see anything too onerous there that you'd have any issues with, or, okay. Yeah, I guess Department of Public Works will need to get involved with some kind of temporary traffic plan, or was there some talking, during demolition and perhaps maybe some parts of the construction? Were you going to have to close some streets probably?
As far as the demolition, I think we should be fine keeping things on site.
Okay.
We might end up messing up the terrace on what's the street to the west? The west of the
Division.
that might, right, we might need to do some repair in the lawn and things like that. I'm not sure when they would fence the property off. I know we will have to do that when we start construction. And that's something, maybe I talked to someone in Public Works about the timing of that fencing. Maybe they'll want it up before we start taking things down, just to keep people's interest on the street rather than on the lot. So, and then on the State Street side, there's a power pole that's near the corner that interferes and crosses over the corner of our property. And we've had talks with Public Service to have that moved, and that'll be part of our contractor's responsibility.
Yeah.
He'll be right along the sidewalk. I think we're hoping that we don't have to touch any sidewalk on Badger or State, but on Division, we're assuming we may be replacing the sidewalk on that entire side. Erosion control, I think everything fits within the boundary of the site.
Yeah, you're going to be in pretty close proximity to the complex right behind you, to the north. I'm assuming everybody will be nice neighbors and everybody will get along, but it's probably going to be a little disruptive for those residents. I know we've done some activities on that parking lot through the years, and managing some of the complaints got interesting.
Okay.
So, you want to reach out to them and talk to them. I mean, you're allowed to do what you need to do during normal, kind of hours for noise and all that kind of stuff. But
okay.
you
Can we flip back to the site plan? One of the site plans. Right now there's an existing drive that comes from the neighbor's property, and our thought was that we could, we're just going to terminate it at the property line, but there it is. It's possible that if they're willing to work with us, we can figure out a way to get our contractors to pave a little piece there and add a few more parking spaces on their property, and that will, divide and define our property from theirs. There's also a piece of the church that's either over the property line when they created the new property line, part of the building is on it. So we probably need to get some kind of letter in place with them.
Is there a sizable basement in that existing church?
The church's basement is actually, it's a split level, so you come in and you go up, like, let's just say 5 feet up and 5 feet down. So there'll be, we'll be filling that.
And that was going to be my
with
question,
gravel.
is how much backfill are you going to have to bring in?
Right. So originally we had a demolition price from another contractor out of the Fox Valley, and they were going to just grind all the masonry material and take everything else out, and that was going to be leveled with the materials from the church. But with the deconstruction happening now, that's a cost that we've decided is worthwhile. So.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on this earlier project. Tenants aren't really going to have much of an opportunity for green space, you got to use the whole lot, and I can appreciate that. There's really no, so they'll have to get their leisure time outside at maybe some public spaces
Right.
down along the
Walk down
river.
The new sidewalks at the new businesses
Yeah.
up and down through town. I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
There is some green space which is going to be where water runoff occurs. It's probably it's going to be about 3 feet, a depression about 3 feet, and it's by the dumpsters. So probably not real usable.
No. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions?
Jared, you have everything, all of your stipulations or things that you
Yeah.
addressed? Resolve?
Was able to review it, added my conditions, fairly straightforward conditions. I think it's a great project. It is in our downtown. It's close to Main Street. It's going to provide market rate housing for young professionals all the way up to the elderly. It's walkable to the senior center as well as multiple parks. So I think it's a great location for the project.
I'm just curious, how did you find out about this site and potential opportunity?
My family has some properties around this area, so we're in downtown.
You come here, though. Cool. Well, we couldn't have waited till the last buzzer beater to do this.
Right. Yeah.
Right? I mean, the TIF district's got to close. So somebody's looking out for us. Well, great. Well, thank you for taking an interest in making investment.
Thanks for having us.
We could certainly use more housing downtown. I'll put more people downtown, which is cool.
We would like to get this started and work on some other things too.
Awesome. All right. Well, are we ready to take some action?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the site plan.
Okay. Eric?
Second.
Got a second from Ivan to approve the site plan. Like last time with the conditions identified in the packet and the engineer's review.
Yep.
Got it. All right, we got a motion and a second to adopt the site plan. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Great. Well, have great luck, and thank you. All right, item C. Looks like we want to tweak our resource conservation district a little bit.
Yeah, so on page 142, item 4A, we are looking at, I apologize. We're still on 3C. You are correct. 3C, resource conservation. So this is an ordinance. We had talked about these changes at our last Plan Commission meeting. So our resource conservation district was originally intended to kind of be supplemental to the overall zoning district and distinguish areas of environmental sensitivity, wetlands, things like that. So since that was created, the DNR has since updated its wetland delineation map in which renders this resource conservation district null. It does not follow the exact contours. There's now some parcels with the resource conservation district that there really are no wetlands in it. There's others that, more of the parcel is needed. There's some that the resource conservation district does not encompass all of the wetlands. So, really from a staff standpoint and zoning standpoint, it's best for us to try not to distinguish it since we're not the one defining it usually. We leave that up to the DNR. So just using the DNR wetlands map and wetlands layers when we need them is in the best interest of, practice. So as part of this, started talking with Laura and looking at our parks in which they are a variety of different zoning districts, ranging from resource conservation to agriculture to, I think there's one also zoned as B1. So talking with Laura, it also appeared from a zoning standpoint that we should really have a separate district for our parks that allows for a little bit more leeway for us to add pavilions, add splash pads, add the amenities that we would like to provide for the community as assets. Best way to do this was to redefine the resource conservation district into a resource conservation and parks district, in which this district would be solely intended for parks and maybe other environmentally sensitive areas. If there's an area that's wetlands and we want to delineate it, or if we wanted to set it as somewhat of a resource conservation, park or something like that, or habitat restoration, things like that. So this is in ordinance format. It's coming forward, catered towards our parks, so that we can go through a rezone process for all of our parks and get them rezoned all this district. So I'm going to stop rambling, and I will take any questions if there are any. Again, nothing has really changed since the last discussion we had at the last Plan Commission meeting.
I'm just trying to. Connection keeps going bad on the iPad. I don't know what I'm doing. So we have a draft ordinance that the staff is presenting, kind of clean up the resource conservation districts to more adequately follow state, I guess federal flood maps, right? Are those federal or state?
I think there's more state.
Yeah,
I think they may use federal resources, but yeah, just using their maps and layers instead.
Yeah, I'm going to get this clear quick enough. So on this one, we would be recommending to the council to adopt. Right. I keep losing my connection. Does anybody have any other questions for Jared?
This wouldn't prohibit the construction of structures?
No, it would not. So in the, say it's say our splash pad, public parks, recreational facilities, playgrounds, athletics fields, courts, and any other supporting accessory uses and structures for public parks. So for an example, the splash pad would fall under that category as a permitted use. A pavilion, whether it's enclosed or more of an open air pavilion, it would fall under that category. So no, it would not prohibit any specific structures from going in. Now, if somebody came in and wanted to start doing metal fabrication in one of our parks, that's going against the intent of the district, and we would be able to then deny a structure like that. But again, the intent is to have this district for city parks and allow just a little more flexibility on what we can do. If that answers your question.
It does.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? Are we ready to?
And I will say I did go over this with our Park and Rec director as well before I had brought it forward.
All right. Anybody interested in making a motion?
So moved.
Hey, we got Dana making a motion to recommend approval of the ordinance to council. You got a second?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. Commissioner Olson seconded the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5 ayes.
6 ayes.
6 ayes. 1 absent. Okay. Discussion items. We have airport district creation, signage standards, and short-term rentals.
The fun begins. So this first one, item 4A, is for airports. So similar to our parks, our airport is zoned agricultural at the moment. We had a airports section that was fairly minimal. It just talked about, generally what could and couldn't go on at the airport. And working with our airport manager, in a way we have control, in a way we don't. The FAA, not FFA, FAA does regulate pretty heavily what can go on at an airport. They have rules and requirements that, in the end, the city could also enforce, but leaving it up to that area of expertise in that field would be in the best interest of the city. It was also fairly minimal in a way that a lot of things were assumed, and a lot of the general processes needed to be followed for airports, in which they weren't really cohesive with the general overall process. As an example, when a lease contract would come forward, it would come forward to the airport board. It was supposed to come forward to Plan Commission. I don't know that it was. And then it was going to City Council. So this again, looking at Plan Commission, again, we generally plan for the airport, but the airport is already planned in a way that it doesn't need an extra set of approvals. So just having go to the airport board, which is essentially the planning commission of the airport and city council, would be ideal, and also sending forward a use application with that to actually state what the use of the structure was. Before, it was just a lease agreement stating that this entity was leasing this space and was going to put a hangar on it. There really was no interest in what was being put in it. There was no paperwork on that. So kind of cleaning that up a bit. Adding in, I guess one of the big one was signage standards. So we have a business like an airport mechanic or a flight school out at the airport in which our agricultural district did not allow any signage. So the hope for this would be by switching it to a specific airport district, it would have specific airport signage standards, which, we don't want a 20-foot ground sign, outside of somebody's hangar. So excluding that, we would like a ground sign that's really meant for only city property to distinguish the airport from Highway 10, to show that it's there. But mainly we're showing that wall signs are the preferred and allowed signage for these hangars, in which they could display their flight school name, their mechanic name, draw attention to the airport, show that we have those features, and try to attract more people to the airport. So that's another change. And really, I guess those are the big ones. Again, similar to the resource conservation, I think just by making it its own district and freeing it from the general processes of the zoning code, allows for a little more flexibility of what can go on there. It allows the airport manager, who I believe is more of an expert than I am, a little more say in what goes on there, permitting, etc. Allows for him to gain more knowledge, have more information come in, hard copy, that they can keep for records. So in my mind, kind of a cleanup. I did go through this entire proposal with the airport manager, made changes as he had saw fit before bringing it forward. So happy to take any questions if there are any as of now. Otherwise, if you want to look at it after the meeting and provide questions via email, phone call, that's fine as well.
So with these proposed changes, there's going to be very likely a new city hangar built. So assuming that situation, the airport board will sign off on it.
So a new city hangar, so any new construction would still come to us because it needs building permits. We would still have a site plan submitted.
Good.
Yeah.
So anybody building a hangar or anything.
Yep. And
that would be the normal process.
Correct. Okay. And it's a little odd because right now we have designated spots for hangars that if somebody wanted to build a hangar, they'd build it in this specific spot. Whereas, if we were to take a look at our zoning code for an agricultural district, some of the setbacks weren't being met. It didn't work with the airport. Whereas this code is meant to, it pretty much says, there's no setbacks, but we're going with what the master plan for the airport is, or the already adopted layout plan of the airport is. So anything like that or any changes. So I know a master plan was brought up, that, it's something that the airport should complete per federal entities. So, once that's created, that's kind of the guide that would be followed for any future development.
Any other questions for Jared on that one?
Yeah, just a small one. On the first page there, bullet number 2, city services required by the leasee. Terminal restrooms, does that just mean one on site there at the airport, or each individual entity? If there's a flight school, if there is 4 or 5 companies that end up.
So that's one that was
out there.
A little bit of a sticking point. So right now we don't have sewer all the way out to the airport. It is the hope that we get sewer all the way out to the airport. We just have not had that opportunity. There hasn't been a big development that's gone in that kind of catalyzes that, and it is not a cheap process. So at this point in time, the option would be to have them do septic systems, in which there really isn't space for septic in some of those hangars. And part of the building code is that there should be bathrooms. So there's some contradicting points in there in which that specific point that you had mentioned is meant to say that the terminal bathrooms are shared for everyone. You know, whether you're the flight school, the airport mechanic, a general aviation hangar owner, you can use those bathrooms within the terminal that are open 24/7. So it's kind of excluding that you need a bathroom, or if you want a bathroom, it's saying, well, you can't unless you assist with sewer extension, which again, costly and not very feasible for many.
Okay. So however many entities go in, they'll still only use the terminal restrooms, at least for now?
At least for now. When we get to a certain point, that there might be a tipping point in which the bullet will need to be bitten and sewer will need to go in, and then individual hangar bathrooms will need to be built. But we have not crossed that bridge quite yet, so just putting this piece in the code kind of alleviates any headaches.
This isn't really ordinance specific, but I did, just as an FYI, I did receive an email from the BOA today that the request for proposals went out. Justin, I think you got it too, for a T-hanger project that would generate revenue at the airport. The BOA is running with that. That's also in our capital plan. So we've been talking about it for a long time. It finally went out, which is good.
So the BOA will lead that project.
Correct.
Gotcha. So that hangar project could start this year yet. Highly likely.
Yep.
Which would be spectacular. I know I'm talking with our airport manager. We do have a waiting list. So I think that'd be a huge impact or positive impact for the airport.
So I don't know that we need any action unless commissioners think so. I think you're just looking for,
just
yes,
general,
go ahead and proceed, bring us an ordinance in the future.
General discussion, wanted to put it out there. That way, if you guys late night reading, you know, something pops into your head, you can shoot me an email.
Okay.
We can get those changes made. I'll, of course, bring it forward in ordinance format, and at that time, if there's any, last-minute changes or suggestions, we can always change that ordinance.
I do have a comment. So 2A talks about lighting. Looks like the airport manager reviews and approves that, which is fine. But then there's signage. Are signs allowed to be lit as well? I didn't see that in that section.
So it was not put in there that signs could be lit. Because it's specifically exempted, it is not allowed.
A lit sign is not allowed.
A lit sign would not be allowed.
Just under 5, flashing, moving, and illuminated
Yeah.
signs on non-city
It's hard on
property.
night fly.
And the intent would be to not have extra lights at the airport. Now, I guess the only exception to that would possibly be the ground sign indicating that it is the Waupaca Airport. Again, right outside the front of the terminal, against Highway 10. So I guess maybe a small clause on something like that for the ground sign, or lit signs could be approved with airport board and airport board approval.
I have a question, Jared. Just to Justin's point, just remind me, in our other tables when we talk about signage, is an illuminated sign its own separate category, or is it not?
So an illuminated sign, and actually it's going to be in the signage standards in the next section. It states, illumination standards, the use of unshielded lighting, including exposed incandescent light bulbs hung or strung on poles, wires, or any other type of support intended to illuminate a sign is prohibited. All sign lighting shall be designed, located, shielded, or hooded as to prevent the casting of glare or direct light upon adjacent roadways, surrounding properties, or into the sky. And those are illumination standards.
Okay, thank you. So it is not a separate category.
It is not a separate category.
All right, so I think the consensus, if I got it correct, for the commission is just go ahead and, move forward and bring us an ordinance.
Perfect.
You
And
thinking next month probably, or?
Probably next month, and there's still time, of course. If there's more comments, just shoot me an email or phone call.
Well, and again, the Common Council will get a chance to review it as well.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
okay. Next one?
Next one, this is a carryover from our last meeting for signage. Some of the changes that were mentioned, let me see if I can find them specifically. So clarification on the prohibited signs, what animated signs means. So I did find a definition, so that's on page 150. So I added a definition for that right behind animated signs to try to provide for some clarity. And then flashing signs also included a definition for that for clarity. So feel free to give that a read if that doesn't make sense, or if you feel that further clarification should be provided. In those definitions, can certainly find alternative definitions to include. But just one of the comments from last time. In the mural section, there was some concerns in regards to the removal of murals if they're in disrepair, and we had covered that. And sorry, that's on page 145. We had covered that there are specific sections in here that would allow staff or the city to require the removal of a mural if it is in disrepair, as well as there was a concern for denial. And there would be an opportunity in here for also the city to deny if it was not meant for, if it doesn't fit within that zoning district or the comprehensive plan of the area, or if it's distasteful, or there is an opportunity for the approving parties to deny the application. So that was another concern that tried to address. Other than that, I believe those were the only primary concerns. I don't know if any others have come up. Of course, this is just in discussion format, so if there's not any now, and in the future you do think of some, they can, of course, be passed on.
Okay. Any other questions for Jared? So just like the airport district, we would expect to see an ordinance.
Yep.
In the near future.
Yep, this would come forward for an ordinance, have another chance at review, and then that would be taken to council, and they'd have their opportunity for review as well.
Good. We're ready to move on to the next one. Short-term rentals.
Yeah, so short-term rentals, this is actually was on my list to do. So with the zoning code overhaul that our contracted zoning administrator, Jeff Sanders, had started for us, this was one of the items that was a need to do. So per different states' policies, regulations, a city, you can either have the short-term rentals or you can't. You can't really discriminate too much against it, same with any other conditional use. But so short-term rentals are permitted in the city. And as part of that, it is recommended that the city also adopts a supplemental provision section for short-term rentals. There is a lot of controversy over this, as there were a few court cases. So this specific short-term rentals ordinance that I'm proposing for the city of Waupaca was actually taken from a city that had gone to court against some discrepancies and won the court cases. So kind of initially modeled it after that ordinance. I have also sent this to our attorney for his review and opinion. He provided comments. We made changes. So this has been reviewed also by our attorney, and he felt as though there were not any issues with it. But really what this is meant is it's just meant to put in some standards to try to protect for when there are short-term rentals out in the community, that if there are issues, we can try to enforce them properly. It allows staff some clarity just on what can and can't be done on the parcel. It also sets up somewhat of what's needed in terms of permits and approvals. And I think that's one of the big ones. So ensuring that there's a state of Wisconsin rooming house license if needed, the seller's permit if that's needed, a room tax form filed with the city, as well as a change of use so that the zoning department knows that it's a short-term rental. So specifically calling out things like that. That's really the gist of it. Again, being put in place to try to protect the surrounding properties for when there are short-term rentals. Again, our hope is that we really don't have to ever fall back on this, but it's that safety net in case we do have a problem short-term rental property in the city, that we can appropriately deal with it.
So to implement this, you guys have a sense, the staff have a sense, are there 20 short-term rentals in the city? Is there 100?
Yeah, so part of this would be also ensuring that they are properly licensed. So I did reach out to the county. The county didn't have too many listed for the city. Now, if you go on Airbnb, it does appear that there may be a few more than the county has listed. So all in all, I mean, we have under probably 15 short-term rentals. If I had to take a guess, I think the county had probably half of that listed. And it's quite possible that some of them they're no longer short-term rentals, but they're still listed on Airbnb or VRBO. But the adoption of this ordinance would also kind of initiate the process for staff to actively go out, make sure that they are properly licensed with the state. They do have an appropriate room tax form filled out, and then any other licenses or approvals that they need. So it would kind of initiate the process to go out and make sure everyone's in compliance.
I'm just on AirDNA right now, which has anything that runs through VRBO, Airbnb, Home and Away, on Expedia. I think it has 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the city.
Oh, there are only 6. Okay.
But there may be some more privately run that don't run through those.
Yep,
so it's possible.
quite possible.
Henry, do you mind? I have one question about this. Jared, I just see on here, where did I see that? Hold on. Okay, under 3, on the bottom of page 166.
Yes.
An annual inspection performed by the city's building inspector or designee shall be required to verify compliance. I just want to make sure we're not, so I know, depending on the year, depending on how busy we are with building, that can be one of our positions that fluctuate the most. If all of a sudden it goes from 6 to 25 short-term rentals as that becomes more popular, I want to make sure we're not duplicating services with the county. So I know the county's health department, through their licensing, also have to go in and inspect for seems like similar things. Is there a reason our building inspector would do that, or a city designee if the county's already going through that process?
Yes. So I guess this was just a recommendation by our current building inspector. I know for one of the most recent ones, they did go in, they did find some hand railing issues. They did find some smoke alarm issues. So I guess there may be some overlap in that. But I believe also the city's building inspector would also be looking at other things that the county licensing isn't. I could very well be wrong about that, and I can double check that with the building inspector before bringing this forward in any ordinance format.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Are you getting any complaints?
We really haven't had any complaints from specifically short-term rentals. I think just we don't have that many, I guess, as Aaron mentioned, maybe 6, maybe a few more privately owned. So it's pretty minimal right now. And I know, obviously when you go over to the chain of lakes, they have a lot more. So it's a bit different for them, but for the city, we haven't really had any complaints.
All right, so this would be another one where we would see this in a more in ordinance form, a draft ordinance.
Correct.
In the future. Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Jared? All right, reports.
Yeah. Reports, so page 168 of your packets. Building has stayed pretty steady. We've probably picked up a little bit. We do have one new home on this report. We did get a few more that you'll see on next month's report. So building is staying pretty consistent. Nice that it wasn't a total permit dump, as our building inspector is, trying to get his footing on things, and I think kind of easing into all these permits is really good. He's been doing really well with the system and really well at keeping up with all of the incoming permits. So glad to see those permits are continuing. Page 170, we are, of course, still continuing to get site plan permits, fence, signage, a couple non-residentials, and then a couple of residentials that we're doing, so and conditional uses. So nice to see those coming in, but those are mainly just, they're following the building permits that are coming in for different projects. So happy to take any questions if there are any. And I love the color-coded pie graphs. I think they're my favorite part.
I just want to share one thing, Jared, that you shared with me earlier today. We had a weird week this last week with snow days and people not wanting to get out and drive kids home from school. And our new software system, I know some people commented to Jared or someone in the department that they were able to, it was really nice to be able to jump on the computer, get all their permitting needs, not have to come into City Hall. So just that convenience factor from a user standpoint, which is not something that we necessarily thought about being used in that specific manner, but it was just one of those benefits. So
it was nice. Just roads were bad, aren't able to make it in the morning or all throughout the day. I mean, just having these permits electronically, you don't have to search through files or wait till you're back in the office. Just it was ease of use for staff, and then we received some really great comments from a surveyor as well as some other applicants. Just how easy the software was to use and how convenient it was. So it's great to hear those comments.
Well, it's good that I get a compliment every now and then.
Yeah.
The surveyor did laugh, and he said, "This is probably the only attaboy that you're going to receive this month." So
yeah, there you go.
Hold on to it while you can. I said, "Oh, thank you. I appreciate
Relish
that."
it.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, I think we're probably at number 6 on the agenda. So.
Move to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Got a second. Motion by Eric, second by Ivan to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So how do we do? It is 6:18, 1 hour and 3 minutes.